I, Jacob Zuma, swear
I, Jacob Zuma, swear
that I will be faithful to the Republic of South Africa.
that I will be faithful to the Republic of South Africa.
Please raise your right hand, Mr. President, and say, "So help me God."
So help me God.
When Jacob Zuma became president in 2009, the South African Communist Party believed they had crossed a historic threshold. After years of marginalization under Thabo Mbeki, the communists were finally at the center of power. They had supported Zuma. Now they believed Zuma would deliver. But cracks began to show early. When Zuma announced his cabinet, Blade Nzimande was appointed Minister of Higher Education, significant, but far from the economic portfolios that shaped policy. Finance went to Pravin Gordhan, a figure known for fiscal conservatism. Planning remained with Trevor Manuel, a long-standing critic of the SACP's approach to the state. For a party that had envisioned a radical reshaping of the economy, this was not the revolution they had hoped for. Still, the SACP had reason to celebrate. They had gone from being outsiders to having ministers in government. They had increased representation in parliament and influence in the ANC's National Executive Committee. It was not everything they had wanted, but it was more than they had before. And most importantly, they were inside. But tensions surfaced quickly. COSATU was the first to break ranks, accusing the government of tolerating corruption in the bureaucracy. The ANC Youth League, under Julius Malema, criticized the pace of land reform. The alliance that had once been united behind Zuma began pulling in different directions. But the SACP remained measured. They believed criticism should happen within the alliance, not in the streets. This was their tradition: caution, discipline, strategy. Then came Nkandla. What started as a security upgrade to Zuma's homestead grew into a 246 million rand project. A swimming pool, a visitors center, a cattle crawl. The Public Protector's report found misuse of public funds. The public reaction was swift. COSATU protested. Opposition parties called for impeachment. But the SACP, they called for internal review, for process, for patience. It was not silence, but it was not open confrontation either. They still believed the alliance could be managed from within. But by 2015, the conversation had shifted. The issue was no longer just Nkandla. It was state capture. At the center were the Gupta family, businessmen with deep ties to Zuma. There were allegations of ministers appointed at their request, contracts awarded without oversight, billions moved through state-owned companies, and through it all, the SACP began to realize key decisions were being made outside the alliance. In rooms they no longer entered, by people they had not elected. The communists did not remain silent. They called for a commission of inquiry into state capture. They questioned whether Zuma's leadership still served the revolution they believed in. And by the lead-up to the ANC's 2017 elective conference, the SACP had made a strategic choice. They favored a different path, aligning quietly but clearly with Cyril Ramaphosa. It was not personal. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma remained respected. But the SACP saw Ramaphosa as the candidate more likely to restore institutions and restrain what they saw as political overreach. In October 2017, Zuma removed Blade Nzimande from cabinet. It was not the beginning of the fallout, it was the confirmation of it. By then, the SACP had already broken with him politically. They had publicly opposed his leadership. They had endorsed internal ANC reform. Nzimande's removal was seen not as routine, but as retaliation. The alliance had reached its breaking point. When Zuma stepped down in early 2018, the SACP survived the alliance, but not without consequence. They had stayed close to power in order to influence it. But power had drifted beyond their reach. And when they did speak, The political tide had already turned. The SACP's alliance with Jacob Zuma was not a mistake in isolation. It was a calculated gamble. They believed they could steer a presidency through loyalty. That discipline and proximity would yield influence. In time, that bet unraveled. They remained in government, but they lost political clarity, and the price was trust, both within the alliance and among their own supporters. Power, they learned, does not always reward closeness. Sometimes, it simply absorbs it.